Good morning and welcome to Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and I will be your host. Thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. I know I was off a couple of days last week hanging out with my wonderful husband, and we were traveling, seeing some football games, some preseason football games. It was really, really cool. I like sports. So the football games were awesome to go check that out. And I did a post for Wahlburgers. That was really cool. Like Boston isn't horrible. Like, I don't know. I just had these visions, like, I don't know what it was supposed to be like Boston. It's gonna be interesting. But no, it was really beautiful. The weather was great. Not rainy. It was nice, wonderful sunshine, and we had a wonderful experience at Wahlburgers. The staff, the managers, and everybody was really, really cool, and you felt at home, and I think that was, their goal, right? When you eat in the restaurant, to make you feel at home and you just feel relaxed, and it's a really fun environment, and they have, like, little cutouts, and so my husband took a couple of pictures of me, so I look like I'm standing with the Wahlburger the wall woman, oh my goodness, Wahlberg. There we go. The Wahlberg brothers, right? And I had the Donnie's signature, sandwich, but I switched mines out because I'm not really a too spicy person, so I don't like jalapenos, but I did switch mines out with their onion rings, which was really good, and my husband, he had, Mark's favorite, the OFD, so it was really, really, really good. Good Boston burgers. From there, and, we got to see Philly play Cincinnati, and then we went on, to Massachusetts, and we got to see the Patriots, really dominate in the game that they played against the Washington Commanders. That was good. Got to see Tom Brady. He looks like a human Ken doll. Like, I kid you not. Like, I was just like, look at him, like, you look like a Ken doll, but just like a real life one. Like, we could just put you in a plastic box and call you Ken, like Brady Ken. And, and that's what your name would be. Be like the Ken doll named Brady. Um, but yeah, it was really cool getting to see him. They actually honored him, and they um I guess sped up the process of giving him a statue. So he's got a statue at their Foxborough Stadium in um Massachusetts. And it was really, really awesome to see that. So congratulations, Mr. Brady. And again, the weather was nice. I'm like, okay. I know it's gonna get colder because obviously it's wintertime, but it was really cool to just get to spend that time with my hubby. But thank you guys, as always, for your support. I was kinda in and out of social media a little bit because I was trying to be very intentional about spending some time with my husband because, I do work a lot. So it was a good weekend. I'm just glad to be back home. As always, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's fun being outside, but being home is really nice. And, just trying to keep up with the news. It wasn't a horrible news cycle. I didn't see too many people fighting about too many things, but there is a standard, obviously. We are still having immigration issues, and the Texas, what is it? The individuals from Texas, they're still they're wild. Um, they are. It's like, "You need to get home and deal with this." And they're like, "No, no, we're not coming out." I'm like, "Y'all are interesting folks," because and this is what I said on the show last week when I covered some of this, is that the new districts, yes, they will, be Republican, but they'll be, um minority representation. So even if within these cities there's it's majority Republican, it'll more than likely be a Black American or Latino from those areas, from those 5 areas that they're going to redraw the maps. So those individuals have the representation that they need. And here's my thing, I don't see the problem with it. It's just the fact that it's a Republican instead of a Democrat. And that's where the ideology, in my opinion, goes sour because it really gets back to, are you really there for the people or are you there for yourself? These Democrats, we're doing this for the people. No, you're not. And you're doing this for sound bites, clicks, and likes. That's what you're doing because you're not doing the work of the people. If you were really doing the work of the people, you would have never left Texas. You would have stuck it out. You would have made your voice heard because here's the deal. You're in the minority. So it doesn't matter what you do. At the end of the day, those maps are still going to be drawn, period. Period. Supreme Court's not going to get involved because they already said we're not doing that. Your state Supreme Court's not going to get involved because they already said they're not going to do that. So again, all of the grandstanding at the end of the day, that is all it is. And, you know, it just really lets the people in your districts know how much you don't care about getting the job done. And you're mad because you're like, well, why would they couple redistricting with, emergency relief for these people going through floods? Because that's what they did, because you had to be called to a special session. So let's get the work done. Let's stop flailing around like petulant children and do your job. How about that? How about go home and do your job? How about I'm tired of seeing you on all of the news circuits running around like they can't touch us? And so what? No one cares anymore. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I don't care. But I feel bad for the people of Texas because it just looks like a sideshow circus. I can't take you seriously. I can't. And it's sad. But you know what? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe in your districts that are blue won't be blue anymore, you know, because people are tired of the antics of the Democratic Party within Texas, and they'll just turn the whole state red. And that won't be anybody's fault but yours because people are tired. People are exhausted. People want representatives to represent them. They do not want them running around, running out of state and all over the country, not doing their job. Y'all got some money. I mean, it's been costing you what, $500 a day? Fines? Okay. So, roughly what, $3,500 per person? That's outside of the $1,500 an hour for that jet that y'all flew. Yeah. And that was another thing that happened. Beto O'Rourke, I guess he might have been helping to fund this. Yeah, judge shut that down, so he can't help with any funding. So again, I don't know who's gonna have to go into their coffers to pay for all this nonsense, but yeah, Beto O'Rourke, yeah, he's been shut down from helping. So that, like I said, it's been interesting on that front, and people just need to do their jobs and stop, kicking and screaming and acting like children. But with that, let's get into the news. And again, thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision. Let me get the viewing just right. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to check out this story and get a little bit more into it because I found it interesting. So, see. Trump discusses plans to address crime and homelessness in DC. Now, if you've been following this, basically, Big Balls, he was in DC, um, got into some kind of altercation trying to, help someone. And at that point, Trump was like, okay, we gotta do something about this. And, DC has had its ups and downs, right? Where it was bad on crime and then it got better and then it got worse, it got better. I think all major cities are like that. But, you know, in my opinion, crime kind of skyrocketed um, in the past couple of years because crime, people were treated differently depending on their status here in the United States, if they were foreigners or not. And undocumented people, and this isn't just in DC, but all over the country, had been allowed to get away with far more. They just were. So it has not helped the crime in DC. But Trump, he wants to clean it up. So President Trump said on Sunday he was ramping up plans to address violence and crime in D.C. So the details in a post on Truth Social, Trump stated, "I'm going to make our capital safer and more beautiful, and that the homeless population in DC must move out immediately." He mentions plans to move homeless individuals to facilities away from the capital and crack down on crime, though specifics are expected to come in a news conference on Monday. The announcement follows a series of violent incidents in the city, including an attempted carjacking involving a federal staffer. And that was kind of what I was mentioning with the person nicknamed Big Balls from Doge. But I also wanted to mention there was another shooting. I want to say it was maybe March, April, where it was a foreign dignitary couple, and I don't know if they were carjacked, but they were killed. They were leaving an event, and at that point, people were like, we need to do something about national security. How did they know these individuals were going to be there at that time? I mean, it was pretty much a big deal that happened. But again, the news cycle kind of came and went around it. So I understand where President Trump is coming from and where he wants to step in to make Washington safer. So last week, the Trump administration said it would consider a federal takeover of DC's police force and the potential deployment of the National Guard to confront rising crime in the capital. He also indicated that he intends to charge teenagers as young as 14 as adults to combat crime. Right, so they're not going to just get away with anything anymore. So according to the data from the Metropolitan Police Department, crime in D.C. was down 35% in 2024, the lowest it's been in 30 years. Okay. So this is how the media covered it. The Washington Post that leans left cited data from the Metropolitan Police Department and FBI, noting a 7% decrease in juvenile arrest from 2023 to 2024 and a nationwide drop in homicide rates. The New York Post that leans right emphasized Trump's intention to make DC safer. It highlighted the relationship between Trump and DC Mayor Muriel Bowser, saying Bowser has sought to court close ties with Trump and address crime in DC together. Newsweek that center wrote that any presidential attempt to take over DC would raise serious legal concerns. It also contextualized that plans as part of Trump's executive order establishing DC safe and beautiful task force. Oh, good morning, Dr. C. She says, greetings, founders. Greetings to you too. And thank you so much for reposting the stream. Yes. So I'm going to show you guys a video actually where the mayor of DC was interviewed in just her position and feedback, right, of where she sees things at and how they're going forward with what Donald Trump is proposing.
We have new details this morning on President Trump's new crackdown on crime in a city he loves to criticize in his own backyard, our nation's capital, our home, Washington, D.C. As part of his new week-long campaign, some 450 federal law enforcement officers from various agencies were stationed across the city last night in high-traffic areas. And Trump announced on social media that tomorrow he will hold an event at the White House that will, quote, essentially stop violent crime in D.C., which he claims has become one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Never mind that violent crime is actually down 26% from last year when it was at a 30-year low. The president has long had a habit of trashing the city where he currently lives, but he went into a new frenzy this week after a former Doge staffer was attacked in an attempted carjacking. Trump has threatened to federalize Washington, D.C., and even send in the National Guard. Here's how he put it on Wednesday.
We're going to beautify the city. We're going to make it beautiful. And what a shame. The rate of crime, the rate of muggings, killings, and everything else, we're not going to let it And that includes bringing in the National Guard, maybe very quickly, too. This has to be the best-run place in the country, not the worst-run place in the country. And it has so much potential, and we're going to take care of it.
Joining us now, Washington, D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser. Mayor, thank you for joining us this morning. First, we want to know, and what I think a lot of people want to know is, do you know what the president is going to say tomorrow?
Well, this is what I know, Eugene, is that we have spent over the last 2 years driving down violent crime in this city, driving it down to a 30-year low, in fact. Over the past year, and thank you for showing, we have decreased violent crime by 26%. The year before that by 35%. It is true that we had a terrible spike in crime in 2023, but this is not 2023. This is 2025. And we've done that by working with.
So I wanted to pause it right there because she says, we had a terrible spike in 2023. Well, what happened in 2023? Oh, that's right. You had a very large illegal immigrant population flood into your city. That's what happened. That's what happened. But you won't talk about that part.
The community, working with the police, working with our prosecutors, and in fact, working with the federal government.
Mayor Bowser, you've talked to the president in the past. That is part of the job that you have, is to talk with presidents. They're right down the street from your office. Typically, if a president was going to do something like this, they might call the mayor and say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. When was the last time you talked to President Trump? And when have you talked to him about this?
I talked to him several weeks ago when we were in the Oval Office, and I've talked to him about crime repeatedly, including in my first meeting with him after he was elected. So the president is very aware of our efforts. He established a task force, which our police department and agencies support with information and anything else they ask us for. And so while it is always the president's prerogative to use federal law enforcement or the National Guard even, I've talked on your show before that the D.C. National Guard is the president's National Guard. Right. So that's always his prerogative. And federal law enforcement is always on the street in D.C., and we always work cooperatively with them. The National Park Service, for example, polices national parks. Then we have a lot of national parks. The FBI and ATF always work cooperatively with us on high-end or upper-level coordinated violent crime. And we've had some very successful takedowns with them. It is clear that the president, and I suspect that his announcement is that he is surging federal law enforcement, which he's talked about, and he may talk about even larger numbers or longer periods of time. He's interested in being in neighborhoods, in fighting crime in neighborhoods. And to the extent that officers know our laws, that officers work in community and work with prosecutors to build good cases and establish a presence, and work with local officials who are, the experts in policing and making arrests, that's what we're waiting to see.
Madam Mayor, I'm just curious what you think is going on here. And I ask this question because, last night, Saturday night in Washington, about 450 federal law enforcement officers were spread out across all of the four quarters of the District of Columbia. And here are the arrests from last night. Multiple persons carrying a pistol without license, fugitive wanted from Maryland, driving on suspended license, dirt bike riding in the park, 3 handguns seized last night with one of the firearms discovered to be stolen. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but that to me sounds like a run-of-the-mill evening in a large metropolitan city. So what?
Okay, I need to pause that really quick because here's the thing. He's like, oh, that's just a typical night. But why? Why is it a typical night? And that's my problem. It's like they've set the standard so low. It's like, hey, you can just live in squalor, but pay wonderful taxes. And we tell you we're gonna, take care of your city, but you live in squalor. And the criminals are just running around taking advantage of everybody. But you say, oh, that's just typical. That's just, that's just another Friday night. That's just another Saturday night. It shouldn't be. Criminals should be afraid to commit a crime in your city. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it should be, but it's not. And they know you're not going to do anything. They know you're just going to capitulate. It's crazy. And Patty Cake says, grand rising to you, Patty Cake. And she also says, Mayor Bow Wow is lying. Yeah, because they want to make it seem like, oh, it's not that bad. You sure about that? Sure about that?
Do you think is truly going on here with the president's fascination with quote unquote violent crime? And even Stephen Miller, the senior advisor to the president, deputy White House chief of staff, saying that Washington, D.C. is, quote, worse than Baghdad.
Well, I'll leave that to you to analyze what some of the underlying motives may be, Jonathan. But this is what I know. We are not experiencing a crime spike. We do know that this task force has been focused on quality of life issues. And as you note, that sounds like a typical MPD rundown of arrests that I review on a daily basis. MPD is one.
See, that's my thing. Why is that typical? Why is that the norm? It's like you're okay with crime, and they're just sitting back like tee-heeing about it. It's like, no, this isn't funny. There shouldn't be anything happening in your city. Period. And it should be a rarity for anything to be going down in any major city, because a lot of those major cities pay very high taxes for police protection. So your crime rate should be like nil. Okay. But that means that you're okay with criminal activity. This is why President Trump is trying to clean this mess up. It's crazy.
One of the best agencies in the world, and they police in a very complicated urban environment in the best city in the world. And one reason I wanted to be here today is to let people know that their nation's capital is among the most beautiful and best cities in the world. It's well run. We have excellent schools, the #1 park system. We have experienced rises in tourism compared to before the pandemic. So people are coming to our capital, they're starting business in our capital, and they're raising families in our capital. And any comparison to a war-torn country is hyperbolic and false. I also just really want to say we always want to get better. And there are ways, more than any other city in America, that the federal government can help the District of Columbia. Our city is unique. Our prosecutor is a federal prosecutor. Our judges are appointed by the President of the United States. And by the way, we have 15 vacancies in the Superior Court, which we need to go down to the Congress for approval. We have 2 vacancies in the Court of Appeals, which we need to go down. So anytime you have a backlog in the courts, you have delayed justice and people are less safe. Our council has also worked cooperatively with me to change our local laws to hold people accountable. And one of the best pieces that we have moved has allowed us to hold violent offenders, people who use guns, to hold them pre-trial. And since we moved that emergency in 2023, we've seen shootings and homicides precipitously drop. So we know we're holding the right people and holding the right people accountable. There's more to do. We need judges. You heard Janine Pirro says she needs prosecutors, and we need police in D.C. I'd like to hire 500 great people over the course of the next several years to get our numbers where they need to be. And D.C. is hiring. So if you're
Wait a minute. She needs 500 people, but your city's running well. But you need 500. That's a lot of police officers. Not like 100, 500. But here's my thing. Why aren't people running to Washington to work? And why do you need 500 police officers? I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's one of those things that they say the math isn't mathing. How are you safer, but you need 500? I can see if you say, yeah, we need about 100 more officers. You need 500. That's a lot. Because Washington, as a city, I'm just saying, as a city, is not that big. Just saying. It isn't. I've been there. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. Gorgeous. It's not that big. And you need 500 more police officers, and nobody's just like knocking down your door to work. It's interesting. Black Empower, thank you so much for reposting the stream.
Interested in policing in the best city in the world, please reach out to us.
Mayor Bowser, you talked about how the National Guard in D.C. is the president's National Guard. You talked about the possibility that he could send them out into the streets of D.C. That would seem to be quite provocative and disruptive to the people who live there. How provocative would that be if the president did indeed send in the National Guard?
Well, I'm concerned about that for this reason. I have the ability to call on the National Guard by making a request to the Department of Defense. And they're not law enforcement officials. These are men and women who leave their families to serve our country, and that is just not their primary role, to enforce local laws. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about them not being used efficiently, and I just think that's not the most efficient use of our Guard. But as I said, that's the president's call about how to deploy the Guard. And you are right to be concerned about just the presence of being provocative in communities, sometimes communities that can feel harassed and attacked. And my message to our constituents is all officials, whether they're Guard or other federal officials, have to act in a constitutional way. And residents have rights, and everybody has to follow the law. But that's all.
Notice how she keeps saying residents. She doesn't say citizens. She says residents. See, these mayors that are over sanctuary cities, that's their lingo. So I just want you guys to really, when you hear people say residents, they are including people that are here illegally in that. Now, it's interesting because she was like, yeah, the National Guard, they're not policing, and it is a show of force. You just said you need about 500 more police officers. So obviously something's wrong. That's all I'm saying. You didn't say, yeah, we've got some police officers retiring and we want to make sure we maintain a healthy, robust police force, right? You have a number. 500 people, that's a lot of police officers. That's a lot to put out there. And then at the same time say, well, I don't know, the National Guard might be too much. You kind of need that show of force to basically let the criminals know you're not going to do this right here, right now. And we're going to pretty much make a presence so that the police officers can police. So they're not having to do a little bit of both. You said you needed 500 people. It's just fascinating to me, this interview.
Always our message. Everybody has to follow. Everybody has to follow the law. And so in D.C., for example, all of our police have body-worn camera. It's accountability on the side of law enforcement and for the community. And so to the extent that officials are coming to the city that aren't following the types of protocols that we have, I'd be concerned about the exposure for the federal government or any of those agencies.
Madam Mayor,
and I wanted to bring up Black Empower's comment. He says, notice how she's not calling them criminals. However, they will call citizens criminals when they break the law. Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's an American citizen, they'll say criminal all day long, but no, they're residents, right? That's what they say when they're talking about people that are here illegally.
Two-part question for you. One, how concerned are you that tomorrow the president could announce that he's taking over the Metropolitan Police Department? Is that something he could do?
There are very specific things in our law that would allow the president to have more control over our police department. None of those conditions exist in our city right now. As I mentioned, we are not experiencing a spike in crime. In fact, we're watching our crime numbers go down. In fact, the July before this very unfortunate incident with this young man occurred that seems to spurred all of this action. We had one of the lowest crime levels and shootings that we've had in a July in recent.
Okay, now she's just talking about July, but she's not talking about the other couple that I had mentioned earlier that were murdered coming from an event, like literally gunned down. It was crazy. Happened in her city.
History. So not only are we going down year to year, we're seeing the trends go in the right way in every crime category, by the way. Carjacking have been our most concerning group of crimes since 2023, and we've seen a 50% drop since 2023 and this year we're also seeing that decline.
And Madam Mayor, a final question for you. You, in this entire interview, you have put out the facts. We have put the facts on the screen. How do you convince the President of the United States that what you have been saying is right, true, and fair?
Listen, what our focus with the president has been is to focus on shared priorities. Even in that clip you played, he talked about making D.C. the most beautiful city. So his task force has been focused on federal properties, which they could have been focused on all along. Cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, fixing the streetlights.
I want to talk about cutting the grass for just a second. So obviously my husband and I, we went to go see some games. So we did have to go through DC. Yeah, they need to cut their grass. Now I know this isn't her responsibility because she's mayor, but I would say the Department of Transportation, oh my goodness, so overgrown on the interstate. I was like, okay, the weeds are becoming trees. Like, you guys need to cut your grass. Seriously, this is bad. This is a horrible look to drive through Washington and Maryland, and you're on the interstate, and it's so unkept. I'm like, you guys get millions of dollars every year just to cut the grass. Just to cut the grass, just to make sure there's no weeds, just to make sure that, there are lines on the road so we can see as we drive. And on top of that, people are paying tolls to drive on these roads, and you can't cut the grass. We're talking about cutting the grass. Really? You can't cut the grass. Like, it was embarrassing to me. I was like, I wouldn't want anyone from any other country to see how lazy we are. And I'm just going to say it's just a lazy look. Cut the grass. Maryland, Washington, Department of Transportation in both of those states, if you're listening, get outside and cut the grass. It's a disgrace. Truly, coming up 95. It's beautiful because it's green, but it's disgusting because it's unkept. And you can do better. You can do better. I told my husband I was going to fuss about it on the show. So there's my fussing. If you're listening and you work and you're over the Department of Transportation in those two states, please cut the grass. You get money for it. Make it happen.
All of that is helpful to us, and we will work on that. I have believed for a long time that Trump had a view that when he left the White House the last time at the height of COVID, he had a lot of concerns about homelessness, as did we. Those conditions simply don't exist now. So we're going to keep talking to the president, working with his people.
Okay, shout out to anybody that lives in D.C. They do have homeless people. Like, I was just there in January. They just don't exist. Yes, they do. You've got a homeless problem. The homeless problem, it extends far beyond DC, it's everywhere. And it's an epidemic all over this country, period. There should never be a homeless person in the United States, but we have them. We have them in droves. We have encampments. I think I shared with you guys about maybe a week ago or so where Mayor Bass, they tore down a whole encampment of people and, gave them money for a hotel room, but that's not going to be enough to make sure that these people don't return to that same area and create an encampment again or somewhere else. Throwing money at homelessness isn't working anymore, but we keep doing it, and that's insanity. Doing something the same way, expecting a different result. You guys need to get to the root of this problem and fix it. And it's not going to fix itself. And when regular citizens have tried to step in to fix it, they're told, no, you're not really official enough, so you can't do it. Or they don't even give them the money to fix it. It's like, oh, you got to apply for a grant and make a 501c. It's ridiculous. It is so, so crazy. And Gibson for governor, he says, you're supposed to believe the lies they tell you because of Trump. I know, right? And no. And Unc says, the homeless problem is a problem all over the country. None of the local government has tried to solve the homeless problem, but they solved the illegal immigrant housing problem. Make it make sense? Absolutely, because we know we have homeless veterans and, families that are American citizens to this country, right? American citizens. Come on. The problem doesn't exist. Like her statement was completely disingenuous. She says, I told you, Mayor Bow Wow, be lying. She cut programs generated towards the homeless and the youth. The budget was spent on the others. It sure was. It sure was. It's weird. It's almost like they're not paying. The general public's not paying attention. We could just tell them whatever we want. No, you can't. No, you can't.
On the issues that are high priority for him. Now, if the priority is to show force in an American city, we know he can do that here. But it won't be because there's a spike in crime.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to get in trouble with our control room, but really quickly, one of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail. But now we're talking about governing, and my job is to focus on making sure our city is running well, and people enjoy a great quality of life. And I think we're doing a really good job. We do need the federal government's help, as I mentioned, because they have an outsized influence on our criminal justice system. We need more prosecutors. We need more judges. There are other ways to help. Even we want to rebuild our jail, and there are ways that the feds can help with that. But also just doing their part, cutting the grass, fixing the fountains, making sure that federal law enforcement is doing all of the policing that they can do. And I just have to say thank you to MPS, FBI, ATF, who've always worked cooperatively with us, and we expect that they will again.
Mayor Muriel Bowser of the great city of Washington, D.C., thank you very much for coming to the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah. Super duper interesting, guys. And so Unc says, I told you all these unethical people getting in our government seats bet on you and I voting, sitting down and never paying attention to what's going on. This is why we no longer just vote and sit down. We stay engaged 24/7. Absolutely. We have to, because if we don't, statements like what the mayor said, it kind of gets past us because, she says, oh, everything's running fine. And so, of course, everybody's going to turn on Trump and be like, what is he talking about? Because he's there, he's seen it. And if you've walked around, you actually do see it. I have gotten a chance to visit the DC area, and there's homelessness everywhere. It's Trump. I mean, it's Trump, as Unc was saying, and even Petty Cakes. Homelessness is a problem. And if she cut the programs, that's what happened in a lot of cities. Because remember, a lot of these illegals were sent to cities that were already in trouble, right? They were already underwater. But all of a sudden, they had all of these resources for people who were never here, who never paid a dime in taxes. But all of a sudden, they were getting housing and food and transportation. But you couldn't do that for American citizens. You kept telling American citizens, we don't have it for you. We can't help you. But you helped everybody else. Everybody started getting slapped in the face and being told, you know, everything's fine. Nothing is here. But what I did, and I wanted to share it with you guys, I kind of went through, I like going into Chat GPT. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you can see it. But I had some questions. I said, he gave me a list of large cities run by Black mayors, right? Oh, Cajun lady, thank you for reposting the stream. And Gibson says 100. So I said, okay, so absolutely. Here's a comprehensive list, large cities, population over 200,000, that are currently run by Black mayors as of mid-2025 based on reliable data. So these are the cities that are run with Black leadership, either in cities with a Black majority population or in more diverse communities. And here are the notable examples. So Paul Young in Memphis, over 600,000. Brandon Scott in Baltimore, over 500,000. Latoya Cantrell in New Orleans. Ross Baraka, he made a name for himself in New Jersey. Sharon Weston Brome, and she's in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Garnett Johnson in Augusta, Georgia. Randall Woodfin in Birmingham, Alabama. Steve L. Reed in Montgomery, Alabama. And Chwoke Antar Lumba in Jackson, Mississippi. But actually, he was just beat out, I want to say, in June of this year. So it's actually a different person. Yeah. And Cajun Lady says, good morning. Good morning to you, Cajun Lady. I always love the little red, white, and blue hearts. It's so cool. So here are non-Black majority cities. It still has a Black mayor, but the population, right? So Eric Adams of New York, Karen Bass of Los Angeles, Brandon Johnson of Chicago, Sherelle Parker of Philadelphia, Eric Johnson of Dallas, London Breed of San Francisco, V. Lyles of Charlotte, North Carolina, Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., Bruce Harrell of Seattle, Cavalier Johnson of Milwaukee, Quentin Lucas of Kansas City, Andre Dickens of Atlanta, Georgia, Rex Richardson of Long Beach, California, Yemi Mobilade, of Colorado Springs, Colorado, Justin Bibb of Cleveland, Ohio, Tricia Jones of St. Louis, Missouri, Ed Gainey of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Brian Brown of Buffalo, New York, Leonardo Williams of Durham, North Carolina, Malik Evans of Rochester, New York, and Frank Scott of Little Rock, Arkansas. Oh, and Unc said, sorry, correction. The word is leader. I'm not saying that. Everybody can read that. I'm not going to say that. But leadership could be better. Let's just say that. So for a historical highlight, the Big Four, for a brief historic moment starting in late 2022, the four largest U.S. cities, New York, Eric Adams, Los Angeles, Karen Bass, Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, later Brandon Johnson, and Houston, Sylvester Turner, until term limited in 2023, were all led by Black mayors, a first in history, right? So, okay, great. But the saddest part is those cities that were just mentioned were overrun with people that are illegals. You know, in Los Angeles, New York in particular, and Chicago, they have policies written for people who've already committed a crime being here in our country. And they're not standing up for the citizens. And they're calling everyone residents. It's crazy. So I said, of the 4 largest cities, did crime get worse during their terms? And it says, here's an updated look at how crime trends evolved in the 4 largest cities led by Black mayors. New York, New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, and Houston during their tenures. Note, Houston's current mayor since 2023, John Whitmer, is not Black, so I'm focusing on New York City, LA, and Chicago. Yeah, I like my ChatGPT. It's like, let me give you the specifics. So, for New York City, early in Adams' term, the city experienced a spike in crime, including increased subway and lower-level offenses, though murders and shootings initially declined. By late 2024 into 2025, the picture shifted. Third quarter 2024 saw a sharp drop in numbers, shootings down 10%, and a record high in quality of life enforcement. So in 2025, New York recorded historic lows in shootings and gun violence, with a 50% reduction in shooting incidents across key zones and sustained crime declines, through the first 7 months. Okay, so the takeaway, mixed start followed by meaningful reductions in violent crime, especially shootings and murders. Okay, so in Los Angeles, 2024, homicides dropped 14%, shooting victims fell by 19%, and overall violent and property crimes decreased significantly. In 2025, the city is on track for its lowest homicide total in 6 decades, with about 20% decline in first half homicides. Takeaway, consistent and substantial decline in violent crime since Karen Bass took office. So my whole thing is this, and we'll get to it later, is everybody counted, right? Because see, ChatGPT is just giving me the numbers that are recorded, but are the numbers accurate? Because sometimes you can see the news or even, just local investigations, right? And they're like, okay, well, is it all translating? I guess that's my question. Is it all really translating, or are you cooking the books to look good? It's a fair question. So, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, the first 90 days of Johnson's term in mid-2023 saw a marked increase, 41 more murders, 38 more shooting deaths, and a surge in motor vehicle thefts and robberies. However, by 2025, violent crime trends reversed. Homicides dropped 24%. Over his first 2 years, shootings down 33% year over year, and notable reductions in robberies in early 2025. So the takeaway, crime initially spiked, then declined significantly as the term progressed. Okay, so it just says how it was early and the later trend. So with New York, it's mixed. Violent crime dipped over, other crimes rose. Major declines across violent crime metrics and shootings. In Los Angeles, steady declines emerging early, continued reductions near historical low homicide levels. Chicago, sharp crime increases at outset, strong downward trend in violent crime over 2 years. Now, see, these are interesting to me because these are 3 cities, and we all know that they're also sanctuary cities. Now, in Los Angeles, recently, let's see, it's August, someone say like June, when they were having all of the riots, they brought in mounted police on horseback. But your crime is good? Now, again, not matching up. It's not matching up. Not at all. So all 3 cities experienced improved crime outcomes by 2025, though each encountered different trajectories. So in New York, early challenges, later tangible progress in violent crime. LA, consistent improvements from the outset. Chicago, initial surge, but strong downward trend later. And so I had one more crime. I said, did these cities document crimes by undocumented immigrants? See, that's the question. That is the question. So you're asking whether the four largest cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, at one point, Houston, have documented crimes specifically committed by undocumented immigrants. Here's what the latest data revealed. So no routine reporting by immigration status. So for New York City, the NYPD does not track crimes by whether suspects are undocumented. Sanctuary policies restrict such categorization. So again, we still don't know because they're not documenting them if they're illegals or not. So you can't really see the trend, right? And that's what I'm saying. I want to see a trend. So if you had 5,000 people who are undocumented here and 2,500 of them committed crimes, we're not going to know that because they don't ask them, because that's their policy. That's my concern. So limited data via shelters for the period between January 2023 and October 2024, arrests involving migrants housed in city-run shelters numbered 4,884, including offenses such as petty theft, assault, drug crimes, robberies, and even 3 murder charges. These migrants represented about 4% of all asylum seekers in the city. First of all, they're all criminals. We all know the asylum was a ruse. Okay. No. That's why a lot of them have deportation orders now, because that whole asylum thing was a joke. Okay, so estimates from ICE. Mayor Adams cited ICE data claiming that around 58,000 undocumented immigrants in the city are accused of or convicted of crimes, though this isn't corroborated by NYPD crime tracking. That's what I'm saying. So you've got close to 60,000 people that are here illegally, but you're still not documenting if it's them or not. You're not separating them out from citizens. Yeah, but you keep talking about crime's not bad. Federal pressure, the DOJ sued NYC, arguing that sanctuary laws hinder cooperation on criminal cases involving undocumented immigrants, especially following violent incidences. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Los Angeles, this says no official tracking by immigration status. The LAPD does not track undocumented status in crime reporting, consistent with its policy of non-cooperation for immigrant enforcement, such as Special Order 40. Yeah, so they out in the open hide these people. Legal challenges. The Trump administration recently sued Los Angeles, arguing sanctuary policies contribute to unrest. However, multiple studies show undocumented immigrants generally commit fewer crimes than native-born populations. Yeah, and here's the thing. That makes sense for ChatGPT to give me that feedback, because if they are not specifically tracked and documented, what else is the computer going? What else is out there? It's not. But the records are not reflecting what's really happening. You know, Lincoln Riley, for example, that person that, you know, took her life came from New York. He was arrested for a violent crime. Then he went to Chicago, committed another crime. Then he came down to Georgia. This person at all three, he should have been deported from New York. He should have never gotten down to Georgia, but he did. And that's the problem. These people aren't being deported. I don't care if you steal a stick of gum. First of all, you're already here illegally because you broke the law coming over here over the border. So you should just be gone. You've already committed the crime. We're done. But on top of that, if you're going to commit any other crimes, petty theft, whatever, you need to be deported. But see, these sanctuary cities, they're protecting these people. And they're protecting them at our expense. And that's what I don't like. I'm over that. So for Chicago, it says no explicit reporting on undocumented suspects. So city level criminal data does not distinguish undocumented status. Then how do we know? Because here's the thing. If someone is not documented here and they steal a car and you let them out, right? Did you document it? Did you say that this person isn't here legally and they committed this crime? Does that happen? Because see, it happens if it's a citizen. So you've got a record of that. So if you had 2 crimes, but you're only recording 1 crime, does it look like your crime is going down? Just saying, Bueller. And that's what's happening. They really aren't recording anything because they don't ask their status. And a lot of these policies, these sanctuary policies, release these people back out into the general public. They don't hold them, and they don't hold them to the status that they should. They should be deported immediately, and they're not. It's crazy. So, research perspective. A 2024 study in WTTW Public Media noted that immigrants, including undocumented immigrants, are often arrested for nonviolent offenses. It's still a crime, like traffic violations or theft. Really? Okay, but they're arrested as they should be. You act like they should be arrested. And highlighted a public perception gap. People tend to overestimate crime by undocumented immigrants. They have to overestimate it because it's not documented. If it was documented and we knew, if we actually had the numbers, we would actually be able to make an assessment, but we can't because the assumption is, oh, immigrants, they're not causing crime. Yes, they are, because they already committed a crime when they came over here. So we already had 100% spike. It's down now at the border because, the Trump administration has come in and like shut it down. But administratively, we need to do more. We need to just say, everybody, if you came over here in the past 5 years, especially if you came over here in the past 5 years, you need to be deported immediately. And you need to spend at least 15 years off of the soil. Do not come back unless you have a job paying you $65,000 a year. You cannot work at McDonald's. You cannot work at a gas station. You cannot be a dishwasher. If you are not making $65,000 a year, you can't be here. If you're not married, you can't be here. Period. We're not taking single people anymore. We're not doing that. And if you get divorced, you got to go back to your home country. Like, there just needs to be rules and laws. Period. So selective cases, isolated incidents involving undocumented immigrants, e.g., in a violent homicide, draw attention and criticism often used in political discourse, but are not part of routine aggregated reporting. So it admits it. It's not a part of the reporting. So they're not truly giving us the numbers that we need to make proper assessments. Now in Houston, and it's not currently led by a Black mayor, since Houston does not currently have a Black mayor, and based on your previous focus, there's no need to analyze it here. But broadly, like other major cities, it does not typically track crime by immigration status. And Unc says, this is why Black Americans are delineating, because that's exactly what's happening in our Black communities. I believe that a lot of crimes that happen in our communities are melanated immigrants and not just Black Americans. Bit because of flat Blackness, it all gets round up in our demographics. And you're not wrong, because see, that's what happened. And this is what I saw with the pandemic, especially. What was happening is they were taking a lot of these individuals from, South America and other, parts of the country or the world, and they were dumping them primarily and predominantly in Black communities that were already underserved, or Black communities that were just, getting built back up, right, in a good way. And then you flood them with all of these immigrants, and then put all those immigrants over the people there that are trying to get out of their struggling situations, right? You've got somebody who's a citizen trying to do better, get housing, whatever, but you'll give this immigrant person thousands of dollars a month in cash aid and food stamps, try to get them a driver's license, set them up with a car, get them housing. Like, what do we do? And it happened, and it's still happening. And that is the crazy, crazy, crazy part, right? And we just need to do better. So it says, overall conclusion, none of these large cities maintain official ongoing crime data specifically by undocumented immigration status. And that's what I wanted to get around to, because that's the sad part. And Data that does surface, like in NYC shelters, is typically limited and partial, often prompting political debate. Research and multiple studies generally show that undocumented immigrants are not more prone to crime, and in many cases, less so than native born population. And here's my thing, I don't believe that that's true. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I've seen just over the past few years, they weren't bringing over their best and brightest, right? They, like the Venezuelan jail, they admitted that they had let people out from those prisons, right? And just let them out in, the general population. But again, they're not counting it. So I said, can you give me those stats for Washington, D.C. under Mayor Bowser? Because I wanted to know. And it says, does DC track crime by immigration status? No official or routine tracking exists. So, according to statements from Mayor Bowser's office, the DC Metropolitan Police Department does not inquire about immigration status, a deliberate choice made to maintain trust in the community and avoid deterring victims or witnesses from engaging with law enforcement. Yeah, that's always the excuse, right? It's like, well, we want to do community. Now you want to do community policing. Now that we have all of these people here illegally, it's insane. It's insane. But border crime trends during Bowser's tenure, while immigration status specific data isn't tracked, here's what public data is reporting showing. So in 2023, there was a spike in violent crime. Homicides surged to 274, marking a 20-year high. So remember when she kept talking about 2023 and she was like, oh yeah, the surge, but it's dropped. It's like, yeah. Yeah. But in 2023, it spiked. 20-year high. So violent crimes increased sharply, prompting the city council to pass emergency legislation, strengthening penalties, expanding partial detention, and reversing some earlier progressive reforms. So they saw it because why did all of a sudden in 2023 it just spike? Yeah, it just spiked like that. We all know. We all know. And we all know it's not American citizens doing this. So significant declines in 2024. So by December 2024, reported crime had dropped 35% compared, but this is reported crime. So what about all the crimes that went unreported and they just happened? There's a difference. Just because somebody didn't call 911 doesn't mean the crime didn't happen. And that's the thing, right? So a Reddit summary of U.S. attorney figures noted reductions of roughly 30% in homicides, plus similar declines in assault, robbery, and burglary. So further progress in 2025. Overall violent crime continues to slip, Trump's federal claims notwithstanding. Official data shows a 26% drop in violent crime overall. A May 2025 poll indicates violent crime down 22% year over year, contributing to an uptick in Mayor Bowser's approval ratings. Yeah, because if you're not reporting it, it looks like your numbers are going up, even if violent crime is still happening. That's really, what I wanted us to look at. So final take, Washington, D.C. under Mayor Bowser does not document or publicly report crime statistics by immigration status. However, the city's crime trajectory over recent years shows a sharp rise in 2023, followed by a strong reductions in 2024 and early 2025. These trends reflect policy shifts and law enforcement changes rather than demographic or immigration focused tracking. Yeah. So I did say, did DC have an uptick of illegal immigrants after 2020? Also, are there any policies that protect illegal immigrants in DC? Because that's a thing. So Washington, D.C. has experienced a modest increase in its foreign-born population since 2020. The number of foreign-born residents grew approximately 92,800 in 2013 and about 95,400 in 2023. Yeah, indicating a slight rise over the past decade. However, the data does not specify the number of undocumented immigrants, and also there is no available information on the specific number of undocumented immigrants in the city because they just don't track it. And so like I said, we really don't know the actual numbers. I'm like, I don't know why they're trying to hide it. They're sanctuary cities. So sanctuary city status. Washington, D.C. has declared itself a sanctuary city, probably while President Trump is trying to take it over and keep people safe, limiting cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. This policy aims to ensure that all residents, regardless of immigration status, feel safe reporting crimes and accessing city services. Crazy. I'm sorry. I mean, it's one of those things. I have to go there. Because what are we doing? I mean, to sit and see Mayor Bowser talk, it's like, oh my gosh, there's nothing wrong in our city, nothing to see here. We're doing great. You're still a sanctuary city, which means, and more than likely, why Donald Trump is saying we need to federalize this. Because you are a sanctuary city. You want people to feel safer so they can access city services. They shouldn't be getting city services. Not according to the 1996 federal law. What are we doing? So they've got legal aid and support services to provide legal assistance to immigrants, including those without legal status, helping them navigate the complexities of immigration law and access necessary services. So we're helping criminals continue to be criminals. Sad. Refugee assistance programs. The D.C. Department of Human Services offers programs such as refugee cash assistance to eligible refugees. So we're still using our tax dollars. Really? Which can support individuals regardless of their immigration status, provided they meet specific criteria. And this is what drives people nuts about what's happening in these major cities and the representation that we have. So I just wanted to get more in detail with you guys about that so you could kind of see what's happening and the why. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a special guest joining us. So thank you so much for joining us here today on Unfiltered Vision News.
The browsers of today are broken. They've been overtaken by a barrage of sneaky and annoying ads, trackers that follow your habits, and cookies that build profiles, and all sorts of other internet clutter that's taking precedence over the content that you want to see. In fact, these useless bites can take up to a whopping 50% of page load times, with a third of it anxiously trying to learn more about you. To make matters worse, some ad blockers are even letting ads through when large advertisers pay them. But do you really want a leaky ad blocker? It's because of these very reasons that we developed Brave, a new browser that kicks internet crud to the curb and makes it faster, safer, and better to surf the web than your current browser. With Brave, everything you need is built right in. We integrated technology that automatically blocks trackers, annoying ads, and shields everything that can cramp your style and destruct your privacy. With it, you can expect increased speeds nearly 2 times faster on laptops and up to 4 times faster on mobile. And unlike any other browser, Brave allows you to support your favorite publishers with automatic micropayments. So it's a win-win for you and your favorite sites. To top it all off, Brave is open source because we truly believe it's our web and we need to fix it together. So ask yourself this question: do you want a web browser made for the internet of today? If so, try Brave. It's faster, safer, and ad-free.
And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News, bringing you the news unfiltered Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern. My name is Dr. Ashaki Noni Nichols, and now we are going to have our political segment. And thank you so much for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News for our political segment. And I'm going to bring up our guest. How are you? How's it going?
It's going well. Good morning. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. So, yes, some people may know you, but if you could please introduce yourself, give us where we can follow you, what office you're running for, because I'm so excited to talk to you, and then we'll get into a topic of your choice.
Okay, I am P. Ray Easley of the west side of Chicago, the Austin community, born and raised. I'm a fourth generation Chicagoan, and I am running for Congresswoman of the 7th Illinois District. You can follow me on Twitter at Chicago Red P and link to my organization, which is chicagored.org.
Wow, I'm so excited. Like I've gotten the chance, just seeing your progress, right? Because it started out as, okay, let's advocate. And now we're
Yes.
here and you're running for office. Could you tell us just a little bit about your journey and really what prompted you to want to run for office?
So I've grown up on the West Side again my entire life. When my parents graduated from college, they moved back to the Austin community with the mentality that white water is not wetter, white ice is not colder. Just because you have a college degree does not mean that you abandon your community. Instead, you stay and invest your intellectual capital into the community that created you. So my parents were hyper political. When I say hyper political. My mom wrote her dissertation on the impact of lead, no, the educational impact on children who live in industrial districts and how the lead gets in the groundwater. She took that
Mm.
research and she gave it to the congressman, and he got federal funding to replace all the pipes in the district. So that's the kind of stuff that they were doing, and that's what I know how to do. And so in high school, I worked very closely with Congressman Davis, who I consider like my godfather. And this was with a program called WOW, with Ownership Wealth, which was created by the Congressional Black Caucus to increase Black home ownership between 1 million between 2000 and 2010. When I graduated from high school in '05, I had 500 service hours from specifically working on federal housing programming with the congressman. So this is all I know. And so I was getting people into the homes, and then the subprime crisis happened. And I found that to be personally offensive because we spent so much time trying to get people into these homes, and then they tricked them out of them. So I was
Mm.
disgusted, and I left America for the first time in 2010. I moved to Senegal and started an international school there. It's an international bilingual Islamic school, Ikra Bilingual Academy. We have 1,000 students from 35 nationalities, and we cater to the children of Islamic diplomats, ambassadors, West African heads of state, and business people throughout the continent because we have American accreditation and they get American high school diplomas. All of this matters. Just go with me. So I repatriate, and then I come home, and I could now see the city of Chicago was demolishing those houses
Mm.
rapidly. They put red X's on them and tore them down. So I found that to be very traumatic. So I left America again in 2016. But that was to protest President Barack Obama and Rahm Emanuel because both of them were very complicit in demolishing the housing stock of Black Chicago. This is why the schools had to close. A lot of people focus on the closed schools in Chicago, but they aren't looking at the vacant lots. If you have a community full of vacant lots, that means you don't have the families to attend the school. So yes, you have to close them down. So
Mm.
I stayed in Senegal until the end of
Oop.
about that. I stayed in Senegal into the end of Obama's term and repatriated once again in 2017. And so I ended up getting an invitation to the White House because I was on a blog and the headline was Sucking Place Coon Festival. And I'm like, oh my God, what is this? So I clicked it and I saw Ben Carson's picture next to a woman named Candace Owens. I said, I don't know this Candace Owens woman, but I do know Dr. Carson. I got to go to DC to talk, excuse me, it's going to be in Gaithersburg, Maryland, to talk to Dr. Carson about federal housing mismanagement in Chicago. I applied to go. 3 days later, I get an email. You've been invited to the White House. The president requests your presence. Please attend. So I go to the White House. I talk to Dr. Carson. Long story, very short, because we can go on and on about this. But this whole movement allowed me to see something different because I grew up as a princess in the Democratic. I tell people all the time, I grew up in the castle and I know all of the secrets of the court, and I couldn't take it anymore. So the running joke amongst the politicians on the West Side is that we raised, they call me Lil Pat because my mom is Patricia and I'm Patricia, which is why I go by P. Ray. But we raised Lil Pat politically for a white man named Donald Trump to come steal our throne away from us. Yeah, I mean, everybody says this, like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. But I told them I couldn't take you guys. Nobody got mad that they tore down the houses. Nobody got mad that the illegals were here, because before the first bus ever arrived in Chicago, we were already dealing with the sanctuary policy in the terms of the cartel. They are selling $1 billion worth of heroin out of our neighborhood every year. So it looks like a bomb has hit us. So it's much deeper than people can see. But my main goal is to go and get some straightening for the 7th Congressional District, because our congressman is 85 years old. He works very, very hard, but he's pushing that Democrat platform, and they don't care about us at all.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for, sharing that with us, because I think a lot of people see you and they see Chicago go red, and they don't really know the background. Right. And I know sometimes on Fox News, you only have so much time.
No, you're just talking to a little black box.
You know what I mean? Yeah. You only got so much time, and to your point, like, you can only say certain things, right? Because you're on a particular platform. That's why I have Unfiltered Vision News, because I just want you to tell us, please. Like, so we can help and be supportive. And it's really good to know how much of a boots on the ground person you are and running in that particular district. Now, is there anything that you really want to hyper focus on in this district?
Absolutely. So the first thing that we're going to do is get the Chicago Housing Authority back under federal control, because there was a scheme ran by Rahm Emanuel and then HUD Secretary Andrew Cuomo to remove federal oversight from the Chicago Housing Authority. Then they demolished 95% of the structures, which left over close to 200,000 people homeless in the city of Chicago. The feds gave the city of Chicago money to rebuild the projects, because they weren't torn down because of violence. They were torn down because of maintenance. The city of Chicago at this very moment has $1.8 billion of federal housing funds that they've been hoarding for over 20 years. So right now there are 120,000 Black people on the Chicago Housing Authority waiting list, and they're waiting, but they didn't make the migrants wait. So that's the first thing. We're going to get CHA back under federal control. The second thing that I want to really look at as well are the H-1B visas. We have the medical district here in Illinois. I think it's like the largest or the second largest in America. There are like 7 hospitals within this one system. Our people are getting the jobs because we have H-1B visas coming here who are undercutting the labor market. So even if you do go get all of your certifications and all of your stars and whatever, you're still not going to work, because you're going to have someone here undercutting you. That's not fair, especially to our STEM professionals in this country, in this city. We're graduating STEM professionals every December and June. We don't need anybody to come here and do anything for us. The third thing I want to do is federalize a couple of crimes in the city. And I know people are like, oh, she just wants to lock people up. But it's very important to note that Operation Legend was an initiative by the Trump administration in the first go-round that brought federal agents to municipalities to help them dismantle criminal organizations and solve cold cases. When Operation Legend came to the city of Chicago, they solved 3 murders in my family. 3. Okay, they were knocking us off on these Chicago sidewalks. I can joke about it now, but in real life, I had a cousin murdered in 2003, a cousin murdered in 2009, and a cousin murdered in 2014. The ones in 2009 and 2014 were my first cousins. So for Donald Trump to come here and give my family that type of justice means everything to us because we did not get it from Cook County, and others are not getting justice from Cook County either. So I want to federalize the following crimes: mass shootings. If you shoot into a crowd of 4 or more people, Cook County can't prosecute you. We're taking you to the feds. We want to prosecute carjacking. We want to prosecute fentanyl because, again, we are the epicenter of drug trafficking. 95% of the heroin in this country is trafficked off the west side of Chicago. And we want to federalize switches because that's what people are using to spray down these crowds. Here in Chicago, we love having street parties. Love them. When I say love them,
Well,
you see
yeah.
girls dancing on top of the police cars. Even the police like being there, right? Everybody's having a good time, but nobody deserves to be shot while that's happening. So we gotta bring in the federal government. So that's another thing that I definitely am going to focus on while I am pushing this campaign, because we deserve safety, security, and accountability, and we haven't been getting it here in the 7th Congressional District, and there's no fun in finding comfort in chaos.
Wow. Wow. Well, I do want to address and say sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing that with us. Because, like I said, until you really talk to somebody from the area, you really don't see it. And, prior to me bringing you up on stage, I was going over the different cities and just the crime and the criminal activity and how it's happening, and how, even in Chicago, they're really not documenting the illegal criminals that are
It's
here, right?
it's funny that you said that. So I was at the park 2 weeks ago, hanging out with one of my friends. The kids are out there, but there's a big group of Mexicans behind us, and they're playing soccer, all kind of stuff. A police car pulls up in front of us on the sidewalk and says, like, oh, make sure you guys aren't drinking. They're cracking down, blah, blah, blah. But then he said, but, we're not really bothering them. So if they have alcohol or whatever, we don't bother them because we know if we arrest them, that'll put them in the system and possibly flag them for immigration. So I said, y'all not doing so. That's why crime is down. That's exactly why crime is down, because you guys are not documenting the crimes that they are committing. That is the problem. And that's why we need ICE here. That's why I've been on TV for the past 2 years begging the federal government for help, saying, please come to Chicago. We want ICE. We want deportations. We want the feds. We want everything, because the Chicago Police Department has its hands tied. So this is something else I'm going to push for, because they were sent here to us at no fault of our own, right?
Right.
Then as they push this ICE movement, the people in the 7th Congressional District deserve contracts with ICE to help them with this operation, because
Right.
if CPD won't help, we have private security firms that can do all of this work. So help us get the contracts, help us get the jobs. That's entrepreneurship, that's wealth, that's building the economy, and it's helping make our district safer. So I think that's a fair trade-off.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying what you said, because I know, I'm up here, I'm like, I know they're just not documenting the crimes that are happening. We don't have the real numbers. We do not have the raw data to make a proper assessment. So everybody can say, oh, yeah, crime's gone down, because you're not counting the people that are here illegally, which they've already committed a crime,
Correct.
i.e.,
That's
the
crime number
illegal part.
one.
From day one, y'all have been out of pocket, and we're supposed to, as the citizens, they expect us to
Can you hear
capitulate,
me?
be okay with this. Nobody's okay with this.
Wait, can
No
you hear
one.
me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Wait, hold on one moment. Hold on.
Oops. We're live, y'all. But I'm so grateful that P. Ray was able to confirm, you know, where I was going with it. And Mark from the Soil, thank you for reposting the stream. And April Showers, thank you so much for reposting the stream. We will have P. Ray come back momentarily. But with that, let's see. I did want to show something. Goodness, she was giving me so much good information. I was like, wow, I just loved everything that she was talking about, especially, just about the crime in Chicago, right? And how she said, there was a group of people behind her when she was out and about, and the police officer specifically said, oh no, we're not going to, mess with those individuals, because if we do, then they'll be in the system. but they should already be in the system. That's the thing. They already got here illegally, but different story. We'll is one of those things. We'll get there.
Okay, I'm
There we
sorry
go.
about that. My alarm went off and I had to reset a
Oh,
little bit. But
it's
yeah,
okay.
so yeah, that's why I'm doing this. Um, I have a thriving life in Senegal. A thriving life. But I told myself in 2016 it doesn't make sense for me to build over here when I have work to do in my own country. So I'm back. Hustling. Everything that we're doing. I used to be a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch up until May, and I was flipping my corporate paycheck into this movement, which is why I drive a Nissan and not a Jag. Like this is really real for me because again, this is all I know. This is
Mhm.
literally all I know how to do is policy, love on my people, and hang out with my neighbors and my family. That's it. And that's all we want to do. We're country people in Chicago, straight up 57 out of Mississippi, Tennessee, Alabama, and Louisiana, and we hold on to that culture. So when we see people who are taking advantage of us, we're going to stand up for ourselves, especially because we grew up listening to sad cotton picking stories, okay? The
Mhm.
saddest cotton picking stories you ever
Yeah.
want to hear. So for
Yeah.
us to know that our people fled the South, getting away from terroristic Democrats, to run to Chicago, to run into more terroristic Democrats who have redlined us, flooded our communities with drugs, flooded our communities with guns, allowed illegals to come here and terrorize us, taking our tax funds and giving it to them. Another thing that I'm sorry, I'm kind of talking
You're
quickly,
fine.
but what took me to City Hall was rehabs. So
Mhm.
a woman who lives on my block, her name is LaWanda Jones. They've been in their house since like 1980. My grandparents bought our house in 72. So we're very, very close. They actually call my grandmother auntie, so we're all kin. And
Mhm.
so Wanda was sitting in the living room with her daughter, Amarie, doing their TikTok dance, and a bullet came through the window, hit Amarie in the neck, and she bled to death in front of their whole family. Mama, aunties, uncles, cousins,
Mhm.
grandmama, brothers, sisters. Okay, the whole family is traumatized. I
Mhm.
saw Wanda on the Chicago mugshot page a couple years later wearing Amarie's Rest in Peace t shirt. She was obviously high, and her charge was possession. Now, I was the hostess of a show called Black Excellence Hour, a show for people with high self esteem. And it was here on the radio in Chicago. An alderman called my show and said the first $51 million that we gave to the migrants was opioid settlement money. We were supposed to build rehabs with that money, and we gave it to them. So I went to City Hall and said, put the money back in the rehab fund. My family been paying property taxes for over 50 years. Wanda family been paying property taxes for over 40 years. So why aren't our taxes being automatically allocated to us? Don't spend any money from the 37th ward on them. We don't want them to have a dime, okay? Our people need those rehabs. Y'all know that they're selling drugs. Mayor Johnson lives in our neighborhood, so he knows full well what's going
Wow.
on, and he has the power to stop it. He lives 7 blocks from me, 6, 7 blocks from me. I know his wife. His wife used to be the chief of staff for the 29th ward, which means she knows very well what's going on this west side. But they're playing these games because the Chicago Teachers Union has been going down to Venezuela for over a decade, building relationships with them, inviting them to come up to the city of Chicago and spend our tax money. How is this okay? It's not
Wow.
okay. And I'm like, guys, why am I the only one upset? They're like, oh no, you're not the only one upset. But
Mhm.
because the system here is based on non-for-profits and grants, and that money
Mhm.
is allocated through the government, that exists as an invisible campaign line item. And so people say, I'm with you, girl, but I can't be loud with you because I don't want to mess up my money. So they removed capitalism from the city, made us a socialist society, and now
Mhm.
the Democratic Party dictates every facet of people's lives because they need their program checks. No,
Mhm.
this is a manufacturing epicenter. So as the president brings more companies back to America, those
Yeah.
companies have to be here on the west side of Chicago because
Yeah.
all roads lead to the 7th congressional district. We know that that's the Chicago Loop. All the roads in America, all the railways in America, all the waterways. We can do this in a capitalist way, but the Democrats have broken us down so much that we
Mhm.
believe that the only thing that we can that we deserve are non-for-profit checks, and we're
Wow.
better than that. We got higher self-esteem.
Hmm. It's one of those things I like to call it corporate welfare,
Yes,
right? But technically, it isn't corporate welfare because, unfortunately, nonprofits and charitable organizations they don't make anything. They supply a service that, unfortunately, isn't audited. So you really never know what outcomes should be, right? Like
correct,
they're not saying, okay, 50% of the people we helped from being homeless, they now have jobs. There really isn't a hard line. If you do not, progress and give results, you're not going to get any more funding.
right.
There's nothing there for that, and so it does drive me nuts. And it's only because I work in compliance, and I'm I'm really all about auditing and compliance, and you better
Yes.
do your job.
Well, I'm a
So
finance person too.
I want some results. Like we're spending how
Mhm.
much money, and there's no results. Really, come on, and you're only really spending 20%
Mhm.
of the funding on the problem. The other 80% is all administrative fee.
Admin, yeah, and that's what we're dealing with here. We are $1 billion in debt as a city. The Chicago Public Schools are in debt $739 million. And again, ma'am, I was going to City Hall telling them we don't have the money for this. You guys are overspending us. Do you think we're stupid? Please stop. And now we're at the end of the road, and everybody's like, "Whoa, we don't know what to do." Oh, you knew what you were doing. And therefore, we need a congressperson who's going to stand in the well of the Congress and scream, "We need ICE here." I don't understand why my congressman wasn't doing that. The police station is 7 blocks from his house. You understand me? So
Mhm.
he was driving past watching all those people. He should have ran to DC immediately and called an emergency hearing and said, "We need some help in my district because we are being flooded." But the reason they came here is because we were magnetized for illegal immigration through the sanctuary policies. That's why people are mad at Greg Abbott. Thank you, Greg Abbott. Thank you so much. Because had you not pushed those people up here, my people still would have been sleeping on this issue. And they want to focus on Greg Abbott, but they don't talk about Eric Adams and how he was sending them here from New York. They don't talk about how the mayor of Denver was sending them here, who's a
Mhm.
Democrat. They don't
Miami,
talk about how
Florida. Let's talk about Florida. Don't leave DeSantis out of this.
well, DeSantis, but they like to make it a Republican issue against Black Democrat mayors. But the Democratic mayor of, I mean, Democratic, Democratic governor of Arizona sent people
Mm.
up here as well.
Wow.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Everybody in America was sending these people up here on Black
Wow.
Chicago, and we did not deserve that. We already have our own problems,
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
therefore I'm going to Congress to sweep all this up. And I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like the congressman, he's 85 years old. He was just in a Billiken parade, walking and sweating. I don't want to do that. Give me 2 terms, district. Give me 2 terms. That's it. If I can't get it done, send somebody else. But I know this problem because I've been watching this problem since I was a girl. And all I know how to do is get stuff done through the congressman's office.
Right, right. And see, and there needs to be more people like yourself, right? That I know you're not bought and paid for. And I know you want to get the work done. So I need everybody who's listening and who's watching this to make sure that they follow you and not just follow you, but support you. Guys, it takes, $5, $10 a month consistently or more to run a really credible campaign. And we need we need P-Ray times 100 around the country, but really in Chicago because like it's been insult to injury. And I'm just so, so glad that you are running. But I'll let you have last words. Should be back, y'all. Because of course I say, yes, you can have last words. But yes, I'm really truly grateful for P. Ray in her heart, because a lot of times people don't want to get in the trenches and do the hard work, right? They want to do the easy job. They want to do what's as you say, what's convenient, right? Oh, there we go. There you are. I got you back.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, people
Okay,
are
no
calling me
problem.
early in the morning. This phone never stops ringing because you put it on Do Not Disturb, and then they just call you twice.
Of course.
But so yes, the last words are this: I want everybody to know that the Negro is American as sweet potato pie, not apple pie, sweet potato pie. 'Cause that's our pie. We have authority in this country. We know exactly what we need and how we need it. We do not need a savior. We are our own heroes. We have to know and understand that when we talk about immigration, every time they talk about immigration, every time they talk about migrants, they are saying, not you, Negro, and I want you to flee. Every single person who is having a conversation that is not America centric. When we say make America great again, we are talking about ourselves because we understand that there is nobody more American in this country than us. So as we push across this country with this movement of trying to get into government, if you can't support us monetarily, pray for us. Give us a good word. Send us an inbox. This is not easy work. We are fighting against a machine that has been in play for over 200 years, specifically created to keep the Negro in bondage. And we have to make sure that we are granting our people grace because they don't know any better. Okay, y'all, they don't know any better. So shake a hand, make a friend, show love, and vote America first because this is all we have. There will be no PPE dropping from the sky for the Negro. So we got to make it work. God bless America.
That's what I'm talking about. Because guess what? The revolution will not be televised.
No,
And I want
ma'am.
you guys, yes, I want to make sure you guys follow P. Ray on X. And also, make sure you get involved with her campaign. If you can't give money, you can make phone calls. You can send out flyers. You can tell your friends. You can post on social media because, hey, that's free, right? But it
Yes.
needs to be consistent in just getting out there. And anybody else out there, if you're listening, if you're watching, if you want to interview P. Ray, definitely just reach out to her on X. She's very responsive. And again, I'm just so, so proud of you. And thank you for
Thank
running.
you.
And thank you for joining us here on Unfiltered Vision News. And hopefully we can bring you back with an update, right, on how everything is going.
Thank you. And I hope to
And
talk to you all soon.
yeah, and hopefully you can get an endorsement from Mr. Trump.
My
That's what I'm
Donnie,
hoping.
yes. Okay, so I'll leave you with this word. I'll tell you how I met my Donnie. So I met him twice at the White House, but
Yeah.
then I was at a rally in Wisconsin just doing my USAs. Secret Service taps me on the shoulder. They're like, "Are you P. Ray?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Come with us." I'm like, "Why?" They're like, "The president wants to meet you in the back." So I'm standing by these flags. Donald Trump comes to the back and he starts screaming, "P. Ray!" And I'm like, "Mr. President." So we're like hugging, and he's like, "Take our
Oh,
picture." So if you look at my profile picture on Twitter, it's actually like me and President Trump,
yeah.
like in a prom pose. I'm the only person in America who has this. Unlike Mr. President, we like hugged up like we're at a homecoming dance or something.
Right.
But yeah, that's my guy. Hopefully he does endorse me because we got work to do.
Yes. And you definitely have the endorsement of the Redemption Party. So whatever we can do to just support you and get you pushed out there and give you more visibility, we got you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, have a good one. And thank you again for joining us.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Yeah, guys. So that was P. Ray again. Check her out. She is on X, and I will make sure when I repost that give you guys all the information where you can follow her and support her campaign because we need more of her. Right. I just love how she was able to really break down some of the things that we don't see in Chicago. And that's what I was saying before. There are things that happen around the country that we don't necessarily see because we're not on the ground. Patty Cake, she was saying, she calls her Mayor Bow Wow, but she was saying she's lying. There's a different perception on the street than what we see and hear in the media. And these are the things I'm grateful for just to show you guys. And I'm so, again, so grateful for P. Ray, for her heart just to run because it's not easy running for office, trust. I did it. I ran for president. It takes a lot of money and you need a lot of support. But I'm just so grateful for the individuals that decided to run with the Redemption Party. And we won a town. We actually do run a town. The town is in the black. They're doing great. and they're doing awesome work. And that's what I want the Redemption Party to continue to do, is do great work around the country and support candidates that are running for office. We've got a few more people that are running for office that I'm hoping to get on the show so you guys can hear their perspective, follow them, and help them run for public office. So with that, we're going to end the live stream, but I'm so grateful for you guys. Thank you for joining me here on Monday Recap. We definitely hit government hard this morning, making sure that we kind of know, who we need to go after. And when I say that, I'm talking about going after those seats. We need more people to run for mayor in DC, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, all over the country. And you see how I read off a long list of Black mayors that are around the United States. So it's not like there isn't representation. But I think what it comes down to, and the problem is, it's the type of representation. I think there are some good Democrats out there. They're out there. They do exist, guys. Even though on the media we're like, oh my gosh, they all seem so crazy. But those Democrats, they need to, do what's right for their city, and the Republicans as well, right? We need good representation. We are American Negroes. American, first and foremost. And this is our country. And, if nobody's going to take it back, we're going to take it back. And we're not going to wait for an invitation. We're going to get the job done. So again, like I said, run for office. And if you want to run as a candidate with the Redemption Party, just check us out at usaredemptionparty.com. That's usaredemptionparty.com. And I personally go through all of the emails, so you would be working directly with me to, help get your campaign off the ground and get running here in our wonderful cities around the country to make a difference. And I'm really hoping that Pew does get the endorsement of the president. I think it will give a good boost. And that's what we need, especially, in Chicago, Illinois. I pray for their city, and I really want it to do well. We do have a candidate that's going to be running for mayor, Pastor David Lowery, in 2027. So I'm really hoping for him. And also we've got a governor of New York running. That's Derek Gibson, and he's running it for next year in 2026. We've got Shima Shun. She's running for mayor 2025 for New York City. Or she told me, she's like, if I don't win mayor, I will also petition to be a city advocate. So, you don't necessarily have to be a mayor or governor. You can be a council person. You can be a commissioner. You can be an alderman, right? You can be involved in the city where you live. And that's what's important, right? Whether you're Republican, Democrat, or a redemptionist, we need your involvement to make sure that this country stays on course and on track. Again, thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. And remember, stay well, stay focused, and stay unfiltered. We'll see you on the next one.